took over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. There's a hand up among the attendees. Let me get the name. Please, among the attendees, there's a hand up. You can unmute yourself and ask your question. Actually, it's an unnamed device, Samsung Galaxy, so I don't know the person. You can unmute yourself, please, and ask your question.
If the person is not asking, maybe we can move on,
okay,
sir. Or the person can type. Okay.
Right. So please, if you have any question, you can still type. So, Prof, we are back to you. Is there any other information you want to pass across to the participants?
Well, maybe I can go back to Professor Kuti's challenge of trying to collect baseline information that would allow us to produce a customized chart specifically for Nigeria. Femi, do you want to summarize where you got to and what the challenges you see going forward? You mentioned before that the data that you collected to date was really difficult for us to work with. And one of your excellent efforts right now is to collect information from different parts of the country so that we're able to produce a chart which truly represents the Nigerian population.
Thank you very much, Jason. And I want to thank you again for being here. One thing I want to let you know is that this meeting has stimulated a lot of interest in this particular process. When we started, after we met in 2008 or something, when we started, I actually organized a training in my hospital from out of pocket, and people were interested. I don't know whether the Professor Adeniji is here, and then they all came, but we started because we applied for TED fund. The TED fund was not giving us money. But what we noted was that there was a lot of missing data, a lot of issues we summarized. Awuwole was working with me. And when we sent it, you tried so much to see if you can make sense out of that data. It was not possible. Regrettably, we have to discard that. We started again a few years after, and data was not enough from the different geopolitical zones in Nigeria. And Nigeria is a complex society. We have almost 300 ethnic groups. And I pressed that you should try to do regional, if you remember, geopolitical zones. I'm not sure Professor Etruk has been passionate about this, especially, and also Professor Ngozi. Ngozi is on now. And data were coming even in trickles. So eventually we were able to get enough data for the Yoruba ethnic group, for which we have promised that you are going to give us something very soon. But my joy really will be for the whole country to have these growth charts. And the problem we have usually is that our people book late, that's one. And even when they book early, the data we collect were not enough. So for the few that book early, if we are able to collect the accurate data as we have shown in preparing the growth, at least get the birth weight, get the booking weight of the mother, ethnic origin, and then all the other things, and then BMI, we'll be able to get this data. They are not high-tech data, really. They are data we normally should be collecting when we have patients. So that is it. But as it is now, I think many people are becoming interested, and your presence must have heightened interest. And I believe that within the next 1 year, we should be able to get data from all the geopolitical zones in Nigeria. I don't know, maybe we'll be able to speak into the possibility of providing chart for geopolitical zones instead of ethnic group, because we see Nigeria, people in the same geopolitical zone look very much alike. I tried to argue that with you, and you said, no, but I don't know whether my other colleagues want to speak into that. And because if you are talking about ethnic origin, in another particular area in Nigeria, you can have about 5 languages, 5 different, and they all claim a lot of ethnic identity. So the challenges can be overcome. This is surmountable, and that starts from us in our institutions to overcome it. One, let us get the data for the few people that come to us. You have promised that you will provide growth for us, even at the the minimum number that it is possible. Yes. So we may not be talking about the 100,000 you people have in UK. I remember the Australia work class in UK. Postmates, we have 7,000 deliveries, and they are all documented. So you can flash back, and just collect data, retrospectively. But that will be difficult in Nigeria. You have understood that with us, and you say you bend down backward to give us it. So I'm appealing to our colleagues that we should get this data, and so that we can get this chart. It's certainly very useful. Parental mortality, maternal, stillbirth rate is still very high. So I don't know whether some of my colleagues want to tell us how they want to surmount the challenges of missing data.
Dr.
Thank you very much, Prof. Kuti.
Yes, sir.
There's a hand up from Dr. Abe. Dr. Abe, go ahead.
Yes, I understand the challenges that Professor Kuti raised. In Nigeria, if you base data collection on the level of tertiary centers, that will be very, very difficult. And that's why some of us have added community obstetrics to fetal maternal medicine. That has to be on the level of the primary healthcare management, on the level of primary health centers in the country. And that is where most of the women go early for care, and also private hospitals. So my suggestion is that if you want to collect good data, you have to identify people, employ research fellows who will know that that is primarily their job to collect those data. And they are paid for doing that job to get interested in it. And by so doing, you get data. Or maybe somebody is doing a master's or PhD program on the project. That will be more appealing to somebody collecting data, and that will make the project work, the data collection work. That's my suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Abe. Dr. Additional, please go ahead. Your hand is up.
Yes, thank you so much. At the University College Hospital Ibadan, we've also been trying to work with Professor Kuti on this. And the challenge that he has mentioned is the women don't book early, then 2, by the time you go back to look at the case notes, you have a lot of missing data. So what we have now proposed to do in usage is to try and design some forms and put in the case notes, and then from time to time, try and update. For example, the way people record ultrasound reports is not systematic. You can put they look at the ultrasound report, it's okay, and then they tell the man, then they say ultrasound reports, it's okay, and then they try and put a copy. But sometimes you don't see a copy in the case note when you're trying to review the case notes. And then by the time they've recorded the findings, they might not have put all the parameters, and yet some of the parameters are necessary when you are trying to compute when was this ultrasound done, was it at this certain GA. So what we decided to do, for example, in our center, is to do a prospective thing to collect the data. So because when you go back to look at the case, there are just too many missing data that it is just the headache for everybody. Concerning the community collection, like I think Professor Kuti said, it's the funds that you need to do that kind of thing. Like he said, they tried to get platform, but platform, maybe they didn't exactly understand the magnitude of the problem, did not fund, but I guess one can always try again and see how it goes. So because I think it is something that is definitely worth doing. So that is one of the ways that we've tried to address the challenge of the missing data at our center. Thank you so much, Professor Tuko.
Thank you very much, Dr. Additional. I'm not seeing any other hand up. All right, among the attendees. Yes, Prof. Andy, please go ahead.
So one thing that we learned from here, if it is a program that you as an organization could take forward and maybe to make representation with potential funding bodies or the government to sort of say that, for example, avoidance prevention of stillbirth is an issue that you want to focus on. We'd be very happy to help along the lines of what we felt was successful here, which, for example, at the beginning of yesterday's presentation, I talked about assessing stillbirths and their weights and how large a proportion of babies that have died have had growth restriction. We could very easily work with you, whoever wants to collaborate on that, to assess the weights of stillborn babies, and you will find that if you use a standard that is appropriate for Nigerian population, that you will also find that a large proportion of babies that have died had unrecognized fetal growth restriction. So then the question is to the government or anybody who is in the business of trying to improve the health service and to make it safer and so on, is to ask them the question, look, this is what is happening today. This is our own evidence in this country. And the next step we want is to work on prevention. And that's what worked when we first started, and it raised the awareness amongst clinicians, but also amongst funders, to say that all the additional resources that are required, that was pointed out earlier correctly as well, that we will need appropriate ultrasound services, we will need appropriate training and so on in the community as well as in the hospital, will flow from that, from the recognition that we have a problem here that can be addressed, has been addressed elsewhere, and need to be addressed here. And I see you as an organization that is as forward-looking as having members in this conversation that are already so interested and committed, and even the fact that you put it onto your agenda. I would think that already one main criterion has been fulfilled, that there's a strong interest and that you can be the champions to achieve this as a project, as a program, and we'll be right behind you and we'll be very happy to work with you.
Thank you very much. Professor Andy, go ahead.
Good morning.
Okay. Yes, Prof. Andy, go ahead, please.
Good morning.
You have to unmute your microphone.
I've done that.
Okay, go ahead.
Yes. Sorry.
We can hear you now.
Well, I have to it's very well done, and particularly this aspect. We in Benin are one of the collaborators for the that like Professor Kuti mentioned, we are one of those who have multiple, and he was so passionate pushing us to try and spread so that we provide at least the one that is for the Benin and also the other ones that are with us in Edo State, like the Ishans, the Akoko Edo, so many things, ESACOS. So what we try to do is to reach out to our colleagues in other centers, Irua, out. was not the answer. So we are doing prospective. But the rate of gathering this information is still slow. But I think since we placed it on the platform of AFEMSON in our conference this year now, more people are informed. And we've seen that it's not just the data that will be gathered and not be used for any useful purpose. It's for something that is a challenge in our practice. So I think more people will join us. So I use this medium to say, please, these are simple things we can solve out on our own without any high tech. And we are having the backing of experience of those who have done it. We have the guru in it here talking to us, and he has promised he will assist us. So please, when we get back, well, we are not going anywhere. We're at home listening or doing the meetings. I think it's a challenge. Let's do one thing for once for ourselves. This is one of those things we can easily do. So I will reach out again to those I've reached out to and didn't respond well. Some of them are on the meeting. So please do it, especially for those of us in a state like Edo State. We can do it, and we.
Thank you very much, Professor Ande. Professor Audu Idrissa, sir, please go ahead. Professor Idrissa, sir, please go ahead. You have the floor.
Professor Idrissa, you need to unmute yourself, please.
Well, we're not hearing Prof. Idrissa. So, Prof. Kuti, sir, there is a suggestion from Dr. Andrea that since you have been down that route, could you initiate a study with collaborators from the 6 geopolitical zones in Nigeria? Even within AFEMSON, there is a good representation from the zone. This is from Professor Andrea Ogunze. So, Prof. Kuti, maybe you can use this opportunity of this conference to recruit collaborators from the different zones in the.
Yes, thank you very much. Actually, that was what we tried to do. That was what we did actually when we sent application to TED Fund. We have obtained everything, and unfortunately it was dropped. So I think now, the association, is going to take it up as an association responsibility to reduce birth rates in Nigeria. And together, all those who are interested in this line should let us know so that across the geopolitical zones, we'll put up another application for this. And as Dr. What's his name? Abe suggested, we are also going to extend because we are going to employ research assistants, and we are going to extend our data application even to the community, what's it called, the health centers, and that we will swell our database very quickly. And I think there is a lot of interest now on this platform. As at the last look, we have about 60 people on this platform now who are senior obstetricians. And so I think we can make a change. Going forward, I think with this kind of, interest, I think we will move forward. I think we are going to rewrite, we are going to reapply, and we are going to also get funders from other places. Thank you.
I think Prof. Idrissa is ready now. Prof. Idrissa, go ahead, sir. Kindly unmute your microphone and you can speak, Prof. Idrissa. So it seems Prof. Idrissa is having some challenges. So I will hand over to Prof. Jason Godos if there's any final remarks so that we end the session. We have less than 5 minutes to end the session. Prof, any closing remarks?
Yes, and thank you. I do appreciate that there are problems, but I have a feeling because you've got the interest and you've got local champions, I think this is feasible. I just wanted to finally show you the growth chart, which did not work before, and explain to you why it is that you should, in my opinion, you should try to persist with this. I'm going to share my screen again, just very briefly. Bring this over there. You can see my chart, I hope. And so what we have at present, you can see it, okay?
Yeah.
So if we have here, all we have is like a West African ethnic origin, and we can generate a chart, but it will not be very specific. It can do all these things in terms of grid lines by weight or grid lines by fundal height, or by weight, depending on which, whether the modus, the surveillance is by ultrasound or by fundal height. We use the same chart. You can select whether you want to use the 5th and 95th or the 3rd and 97th. And you can print it and put it into the notes, into the notes, and or even for the mother to carry in the notes. And it has got some basic instructions also about the fundal height measurement. And then you've got a unique ID, which then you can enter further information relating to the pregnancy after its outcome. But in terms of data collection, I absolutely agree that that's how it needs to start, so that we can produce for you a chart that is specific and customized for Nigeria. And I'm very pleased that this is now coming into the forefront of your considerations. We're very happy to work with you. And again, thank you for putting this onto your program and for showing this much interest and for taking this forward. We certainly would be very happy to have this ongoing collaboration with you.
I want to thank Professor Jason Godosi for this very important and quite lively and educative session on customized charts and growth assessment protocol, evidence demonstration, and steps for implementation. I want to thank all the participants for the active participation, for all the questions. And I also want to specifically recognize Prof. Kuti for the efforts in locally producing these growth charts. And I think it's an opportunity for all of us to participate jointly from all the various parts of the country, so that we produce something for Nigeria locally. As you heard from the presentation, there isn't really much data coming in from Nigeria. So other countries have gone far, and we have the potential. And I think this association is one of its functions to develop some of these local charts and things we can use locally to help our people. So I think this is an opportunity for a lot of us to join Prof. Kuti and other people working on this to help our people. So thank you very much, everyone, for participating. And we really thank the presenter. We're going to move on to the next session. So thank you very much.
Goodbye, and thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Prof.
Thank you, Jason, for coming.
Right, so it's 11 a.m. We're moving on to the next presentation. And I'll also be chairing the session. And I'll be making a presentation together with a number of colleagues. Specifically, I'll be making this presentation together with Professor Abiodun Aboyeji, Professor Calvin Chama, Professor Adiza Galarenchi, Professor Joseph Ikechebelu, Professor Saturday Etuk, and Dr. Olubukola Addition. We just have virtually 40 minutes, so let's see what we can make out of it, and I'll be sharing my screen.
Hello, Monique Mbere.
Right. So I hope my screen is visible. The presentation is on the MPD for QED program in Nigeria, and I'll be making a one-year result presentation. MPD for QED basically means Maternal Perinatal Database for Quality, Equity, and Dignity program in Nigeria. Basically, this is the outline of my presentation. I'll be talking about the background to the program, the structure, and then make a presentation on a one-year results, both national and regional. And then I'll be reaching conclusions, and then we'll answer question and answer at the end of the whole session. I'll be making the presentation on the national outlook, and the other regional coordinators will make presentation on various regions of Nigeria. The WHO launched a program called Quality, Equity, and Dignity Program in 2016. This program has an ambitious plan to reduce maternal deaths in high-burden countries by 50%, and Nigeria is one of the first wave countries. One of the things that was done was also to launch certain indicators that will monitor this progress, whether progress is being done to reduce these maternal deaths. And these indicators are called Quality, Equity, and Dignity indicators. I'll be making a presentation on these indicators in Nigeria and how far we have gone. So this program in Nigeria was aimed at establishing an electronic database in a nationwide network of referral level hospitals for improving the quality and perinatal, maternal and perinatal care in Nigeria. So what we have basically done is to ensure that we recruited a lot of the tertiary hospitals in the country. So this program is nationwide, and we recruited like 49 plus 5, that is 54 hospitals in Nigeria and all the 6 political zones. Actually, most of the big tertiary hospitals, the federal medical centers, the teaching hospitals, all send their data to this program. And the women admitted for childbirth or within 42 days of childbirth or termination of pregnancies are enrolled on this program. This includes those that have miscarriage and ectopic that are normally considered as gynecological, but considering the fact that there are also maternal mortalities, if there is a mortality from them, this data is also captured. So this data is actually captured by medical record officers. They upload routine data on when any of these women come to the hospital. While we also have hospital coordinators who are doctors, they upload maternal and perinatal death audits if a maternal or perinatal death occur. So maternal death audits are done by the obstetricians, while the perinatal audits are done by neonatologists. So which means that in each hospital, there is a medical record officer. There are also two medical doctors, one obstetrician and one neonatologist who also participate. Now, this data is uploaded to a central unit located at Aminu Teaching Hospital. And we also have regional coordinators that oversee a region each. A number of stakeholders participate in this program, including the health facilities, Federal Ministry of Health, and the WHO, because they're able to analyze the data, see it, and then use it for improving the situation in their various health facilities. Generally, this is how the framework of the program is. MROs are able to log in, they register and enroll a woman depending on the type of admission, gynecological, obstetrics, and there could be outborn babies also that are enrolled to the program. This enrollment is done using tablets. So it's electronic, basically, like I said, routine data of how all these women present, including normal and abnormalities in terms of the procedure, are all captured, saved, completed, and saved, synced to the cloud. And we're able to visualize this data in terms of graphs and charts. And where occasionally we also have facility audits. These facility audits are done by the regional coordinators who visit the health facilities and do personnel audit, condition of facility and quality and so on. And we also sync to the central database and we're able to analyze it and download it. This is how the tablet looks like. And like I said, MROs are principally responsible. So they just click and are able to fill it. So what this morning, I want to present the results over 1 year period of implementation from 1st September 2019 to 31st August 2020. We have both national and regional QD indicators. I'll be presenting the national, while the regional coordinators will be presenting the regional indicators. So as at the end of year one, we had enrolled over 87,000 women, like I said, from all the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria. And this shows the maternal mortality, both crude and adjusted. Now for this program, crude maternal mortality refers to all women who died within these health facilities. While the adjusted refers to women who delivered and also died in the health facility. So the crude includes those who delivered outside the health facility and eventually died. So as you can see, there is a high range between the various zones from the southeast to the northeast, which had the highest, with Nigeria as at then having an average of 557 for the adjusted and 1,391 for the crude per 100,000 live births. Now, when I say Nigeria, I'm talking about the health facilities participating in this platform. So I understand that this is not representative of the whole country. The primary causes of maternal deaths, the highest cause was pre-eclampsia and eclampsia, responsible for 30%, followed by PPH, puerperal sepsis, abortion, and so on and so forth. Looking at the cesarean section rates, there are various cesarean section rates from the Northwest having 23% to the South-South, which had a very high cesarean section rate of 45%, and the country having an average of 33%. The stillbirth rates also ranged from the various zones from 41 in the Southwest to 89, while the country had an average of 60. When you look at the fresh versus macerated stillbirths, what this data showed is that generally there is more of fresh stillbirth than macerated stillbirth in the participating health facilities, really indicating that perhaps a lot of them are occurring during labor, and perhaps if we improve the management of the labor, we'll have a reduction compared to the macerated stillbirths. Early neonatal mortality rate within the first week of life also range from 13 with an average of 16 for the country, and perinatal mortality rate, which combines both early neonatal and the stillbirth rates, also shown here, from 54 per 1,000 to 74 per 1,000 in the various health facilities. The primary causes of perinatal deaths actually showed birth asphyxia and maternal conditions. Maternal conditions, well, maternal medical conditions are some of the commonest causes, followed by placental causes and complication of labor and delivery. And as you can see, most of the deaths in the babies are caused by conditions in the mother. So if we can improve that, it seems that we can improve a lot of the perinatal deaths. We also have data on women with uterotonic prevention, which showed that there's a fairly high rate of use of uterotonics, with an average of 84% of women receiving uterotonics after delivery. Women with companion of choice, this is an area we need to improve on, generally from 17 to 39% in the Southwest, with the country having an average of 27%. And pre-discharge counseling on breastfeeding is also fairly high, with an average of 80% for the country, and counseling on family planning. Actually, this data that were presented are just some of the little things that the platform can give. It can give a lot, but we just brought out these as some of the common QD indicators. I want to stop here and hand over to the next presenter. The next presenter is Professor Aboyeji from the North Central. I think I understand he's being represented by Dr. Adeniran. So Dr. Adeniran, please go ahead. We have to be time conscious. Dr. Adeniran, you have 5 minutes, please.
And Dr. Adeniran, please raise his hand so we can see where he is and allow him to talk. Okay, Dr. Adeniran, you can talk now, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Ma. So, good morning, everyone. I will be presenting the data for the North Central region. And for our data, in the North Central region, 9 hospitals participated in this program. And these are the Hatu Arafat Hospital, Lafia, Federal Medical Center, Bida, Federal Medical Center, Kefi, Federal Medical Center, Lokoja, Federal Medical Center, Makodi, Jos University Teaching Hospital, Jos, National Hospital, Abuja, and University of Abuja Teaching Hospital, Gwagwalada, as well as the University of Ilorin Teaching Hospital. Up to date, for the crude and adjusted maternal mortality rate for our region, the average crude maternal mortality rate is 1,424 per 100,000 births, which is slightly higher than the national average of 1,391. While the adjusted maternal mortality ratio, the average for our region is 539, which is slightly lower than 557, which is the national average. But all the various hospitals have different ranges. Now, relative to primary causes of maternal death in the North Central in this program, the highest cause is from complications of severe preeclampsia and eclampsia, which constitute 28.8%, then followed by postpartum hemorrhage 13%, puerperal sepsis 10.3%, and then antepartum hemorrhage 4.8%, as shown on that slide. Now, if you look at the cesarean section rate, for the North Central, the average is 32%, which is almost the same as 33%, which is for the national average, although we have a range from 23% to 51% cesarean section rates in our region. Now, the stillbirths for North Central, the average is 60 per 1,000 births, which is the same as the national average of 60, although we have a range from 31 to 89 per 1,000 births. Now, for our region, for fresh stillbirths, we have 32 per 1,000, which is the same as the national average of 32, while macerated stillbirths in our region, the average is 28, which is comparable to 27, which is for the national average. And then if we look at the early neonatal mortality rate, our region has a range from 1 to 42 per 1,000, with an average of 14 per 1,000 births, which is slightly lower than the national average of 16 per 1,000 births. Now, relative to perinatal mortality rates, we have a range of 37 to 93 in our region, average of 73, which is also comparable to the national average relative to perinatal mortality. On primary causes of perinatal deaths in our region, the commonest is still due to perinatal asphyxia, just as has been shown in the national data, which is responsible for 14.8%, while we have others like placenta and umbilical cord complications, as well as intrauterine hypoxia. Then, relative to women with uterotonic for PPH prevention, the average for our region is 94%, with a range from 72 to 100%, and is higher than the national average of 84%. And then the next slide talk about women with companionship of choice. For our region, we have a range from 0 to 97%, which means some of the facilities in our regions still have not adopted these benefits of women having their companion of choice with them. But the regional average is 24%, which is slightly lower than the national average of 27%. Then women with previous counseling on breastfeeding, our average is 88% and is comparable to the national average as shown on this slide. And then if we look at women who had counseling for family planning. For us in the North Central, our average is 81%, slightly higher than the national average of 75%. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Adeniran. We hand over to the Northeast Regional Coordinator, Professor Calvin Chama. Prof. Chama, please go ahead.
Prof. Chama, please. Chama is here. Can you please use the raise hand icon?
All right. Maybe let me move on to the next. Just a minute, please. Please, Prof. Galadenchi, please. The next region is the Northwest region, and the presenter is the Regional Coordinator, Professor Hadiza Galadenchi. Prof. Galadenchi, please go ahead.
Professor Jamilu, please, can another region take over? I'm trying to open my computer. I'm actually on the road, but maybe I'll be the next one. If any other region can be ready, I will be ready in the next few minutes. So let me not waste time, please.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right.
I've been calling you, I've been sending texts, but you didn't answer me. So please, somebody should take over. I'll be ready in the next 2 minutes. So I'll be the next one after the next region, please.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Please, can we have the Southeast region? Southeast, please. Southeast, Professor Joseph Ikechibelu, please. All right. We'll move on to the South-South. Prof. Etuk, sir.
Thank you, sir. My slides, please.
Okay, I thought you can see it. Let me share screen. South. Okay, can you see the slides now?
Not yet, but it's coming.
Okay. How about now?
Not, it's okay now. Good morning, everybody. Let me start on the already established protocol. We are presenting the data concerning South-South region. Next slide. In the South side, we have 9 hospitals involved, and 7 of them are public hospitals and 2 private. And the total entry is 1,901, as shown here. Next. And we have, your slide is not appearing well. I guess this is crude and adjusted Matana. We see
Professor Tuko, it looks as if you need to adjust your slides. It's not showing well. Or if you want me to share the slides.
Okay. Please do so.
Can you?
Please, you can share.
Okay, just a minute, please. You have to unshare your slides. Okay. South. Okay, can you see the slides now?
Yes.
Okay, let me put it on slideshow.
Next slide. Next. This has been taken. Yes. This, no. Can we go back here? Yes, this slide shows the crude versus adjusted maternal mortality ratios. And as shown here, the crude maternal mortality rate is very high in the region. That reflects the character, the quality of our people presenting late, some of them delivering in maternity homes, some in the spiritual homes, and they come to the hospital late. As such, we have, it ranges from 81 to 2,713. And when we compare this with the national rate, we discover that our own is far higher than national. Next. When we look at the maternal deaths, what are the primary causes? We discover that pre-eclampsia has taken over. In those days, we do talk about postpartum hemorrhage. Pre-eclampsia is now contributing the most of our deaths. Now followed by puerperal sepsis that had gone low a few years ago. It's now re-emerging. And then followed by postpartum hemorrhage, abortion, and obstructed labor. Next. Cesarean section rate is very high, as already said earlier. The average for South-South is 45% against 33% national level. And this is, like I said earlier, a reflection of the patients that present to our hospitals. Next. The stillbirth rate is also fairly high, though a little below that of the national level. This does not make us feel happy because we are not comfortable with this 49. It ranges from 7 in some centers to 109 in some centers. Next. This slide brings up the fresh and macerated stillbirths. And we see here that a number of our stillbirths are macerating, 22, and the fresh stillbirths, 27. Comparing with the national data, we have 32 for macerated and 27, which means the region is a bit on the low side, but that's not comfortable enough. We should go below that. Next. We now show the early neonatal mortality rate in the region. This ranges from 4 in some centers to 41 in others, and is 17, far higher than what is obtained nationally. Next. Perinatal mortality rates. Here, perinatal mortality rates in some in a center here, one of the centers 11, and in 145 in another center. That's the range we have, and the average is 65 compared with 74 as the national level. Next. We're looking at the causes of this perinatal mortality. Here we discover that maternal complication of pregnancy is the main thrust of our perinatal mortality rates. And then we see here that placental and umbilical cord complications contribute about 12.5%. And then we look at bed asphyxia, and which reflects that if we look at management of our pregnancies and labor, if we can do that well, we'll reduce our perinatal mortality rate significantly. If we look at here, we still see that complications of labor is still a major cause of complications of labor and delivery, contributes 9.4%. If we add them up, we know that our perinatal mortality is significantly a problem of pregnancy and delivery. Next. the use of hysterogenics in labor. Here we see that there are some centers who have done very well, 100%. We still have a center that is only 68%. These have been preached over and over again, and we should do better than this. On the average, we have 89% in the region against 84% in the national. Next. Next slide, please. Next slide.
Dr. Additional, next slide, please. I don't know. Maybe she's having some network issues. Prophet, I think you have just one more slide to show something. Okay.
Well, it's not one more slide. I think we have a slide on showing how we educate our patients on breastfeeding before discharge, and also on family planning advice before discharge. Generally speaking, if you look at that data, we are still not doing well, but at times it's a little better than what is obtained nationally. This is women who had pre-discharge counseling on breastfeeding. Like I said earlier, it ranges from 20% in some centers to 99% in others. On average of 82% against 80% nationally. Next. Here we look at the pre-discharge counseling on family planning. We all appreciate the fact that we need to talk to our women before they leave the hospital after delivery about the need for them to obtain family planning. We discovered that in some centers, we have about 19% of the women obtain such information. However, there's a center here with 98%. On the average, 72% of women obtain that information against 75% in the whole nation. Next. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Prof. Etuk. I think we can go on to the southwest before we go back to the northwest. So that of the southwest will be by Dr. Additional, the Southwest Regional Coordinator. Dr. Additional, please share your slides.
Just a minute, I'm bringing up the slides. Southwest. Can you see the slides now?
Yes, we can see.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Okay, so let me put it on slideshow. So, all protocols observed. I thank Professor Tuku for inviting us to make this presentation, and of course, AFEMSON for making the platform available. So, the 1 year that the Southwest region has collected data, 12 hospitals are involved, 10 of them are public, 2 of them are private. They include, of course, a lot of the major hospitals in the region, the University College Hospital, Obafemi Awolowo University, the Mother and Child, Lagos University Teaching Hospital. And we have contributed 16,000, in that 1 year, we contributed 16 data from women, 16,900, about 20% of the total data collected. For the crude and adjusted maternal mortality that we have ranges from 0, that is in the private hospital, to as high as 2,644 per 100,000 births for the crude, and then 1,252 for the adjusted. That's a public hospital. And of course, you can all imagine being referral centers. We'll get some of the really bad cases. But when you look at the overall rates for the region compared to the national average, of course, there's always room for improvement. One woman dying is too much for a family. The primary causes of maternal death, the three probably need to focus on include postpartum hemorrhage, hypertensive disorders of pregnancy, in particular preeclampsia, eclampsia, and puerperal sepsis. Cesarean section rate ranges from 21 to 59%. The rates are high even in some of the private hospitals and quite a number of the public hospitals. And so you can see that the regional average, 39%, is higher than what you have for the national average, which is 33%. Stillbirth rates from 13 to 85 per thousand, but still overall for the region, it's lower. But of course, there's still a lot of room for improvement. And I guess this is one of the reasons why the workshop we just had, just emphasizes for us the importance of carrying the discussion further. A lot of stillbirths, the blue are the stillbirths. You have menstruated, but the stillbirths, but stillbirths overall. And so that again leaves room that discussion we just had that we need to carry further and continue to discuss. Early neonatal mortality rate from 3 to 45 is the range, 13 for the region, lower than the national average of 16. But again, it is still something that gives a lot of thought, especially when you see this rate of 45 per thousand. It tells you that a lot is happening in the community because a lot of those babies are usually babies that have been delivered outside. So that means there's a lot of work for us. Perinatal mortality from 21 to 126, 54 for the region, lower than the national average. What are the primary causes of perinatal death? Birth asphyxia, maternal complications, and placental complications. And then complications of labor and delivery. Those are the 4 topmost causes of perinatal deaths. The use of uterotonics, 78% for the region, lower than the national average. And then it makes you wonder because postpartum hemorrhage is the topmost cause of maternal mortality in this region. So that means there's still a lot of work to be done in ensuring that women have access to uterotonics. Women with companion of choice from 0 to 99%, 39% for the region. Although it is higher than the national average, but 39% is still low, especially when we all know the benefits of a woman having a companion in labor with her. Women who had pre-discharge counseling on breastfeeding from 14 to 97%, 88% overall, higher than the national average of 80%, but there's still room for improvement. And then finally, pre-discharge counseling on family planning. 87% overall, higher than 75%, with a contraceptive prevalence of about 15%. Of course, this shows us that we have our work cut out for us. So I think that's the last slide, and thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you very much, Dr. Additional, the Southwest Regional Coordinator. We're moving on to the Northwest. I hope Prof. Galanchi is ready.
Yes.
Prof, are you ready now? Okay.
Yes, I am.
Let's have the slides for the Northwest. The regional coordinator is ready to make a presentation. Professor Adiza Galadanchi, please go ahead.
Prof, Professor Galadanchi, do you want me to share the slides for you?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay.
Yes,
so
please.
Northwest slides.
Yes,
coming.
Northwest. Yes, please. Thank you.
Okay.
I think it's still morning, isn't it? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols duly observed. I'm making the presentation on behalf of the MPD for QED, Northwestern region. We want to thank Professor Jamilu for coordinating this, and we want to thank AFEMSON for inviting us. Next slide, please. Yes, so just like the other regions, we had, I think, 10 facilities that are participating in this project, and we have 2 private hospitals and the rest are government hospitals, and they cut across all virtually the states in the northwestern region. You have from Zaria, from Kano, from Birnin Kebbi, from Birnin Kudu, which is Jigawa State, from Katsina State, as well as from Zamfara State and from Sokoto State. And this is our total contribution to the total data. Next slide. All right. Now, so as I'm sure, as you've heard, we're taking data for the last more than a year now. So this is the data for 1 year. And one of the statistics that has been calculated based on the data, we document every single delivery that takes place in this facility. And this is electronically corrected. And then at the end of the day, this data is calculated in terms of statistics. So our crude versus adjusted maternal mortality rates, as you can see, for 015 is a facility, 014 is a facility, as well as 017. So we name the facilities as numbers. The crude and the adjusted, as you can see, for the crude, which is the blue, it starts from about 160 per 100,000 life birth up to 5,500 and 11 per 100,000 life birth. I mean, this is outrageous in terms of the numbers of women that are dying. And if you look at the adjusted, it comes from 162 per 100,000 life births to about 867 per 100,000 life births. Now, the Northwestern region, we're far ahead of the national average. We have 1,752 per 100,000 life births for the crude, and then 630 for the adjusted. Even the 630 is more than what is the average, even for the NDHS, as well as for our own national figure of the MPD for QED. Next slide. And we've been saying it for a long time that actually the commonest cause of death in northern Nigeria is not PPH, it's preeclampsia, eclampsia. And this actually collaborates what we have said. So almost half of women that are dying from childbirth, delivery, and postpartum is from preeclampsia, eclampsia. As you can see, is almost 45%. And this has been the case for many years. And of course, we all know the 5 common causes are all there. And you can see the percentages in terms of numbers. Next slide. In terms of cesarean section, we know that cesarean section is an intervention that saves life, both for the mother and for the fetus, even though when it becomes too high, it becomes a problem. But you can see that in the region, we start from 10% and up to 37% in some facilities. And our average is 23%. The average for Nigeria is 33%. And we know that anything less than 15% cesarean section rate means that there are women that are supposed to be delivered by cesarean section and they didn't access that facility. So this is really telling us that more needs to be done in terms of emergency care for our women. Next slide. In terms of stillbirth, it starts from 14 per 1,000 and it goes up to 131 per 1,000. For our average is 65, and you can see that it's more than the average for Nigeria of 60. Next slide. In terms of fresh versus macerated, we can see that the blue is the fresh and the red is the macerated. For some facility, there is more of the fresh than the macerated, and for some is almost equal. For Northwest, you can see 31% is for the macerated, and 33 per 100, sorry, per 1,000 is for the fresh, which is more than the Nigerian average that we have. Next slide. In terms of early neonatal mortality, it starts from 4 per 1,000 up to 30, sorry, up to 38 per 1,000. And the average for the region is 15 per 1,000, whilst Nigeria is slightly lower than Nigeria, which is Nigerian average, which is 16 per 1,000. Next slide. When you look at the total perinatal mortality, looking at fresh macerating and early neonatal, you will see that is the 21 per 1,000 in facility 015 to 164 per 1,000 in 010 facility. And we have for the region slightly higher than the Nigerian average, 79 per 1,000, and the average is 74 per 1,000. Next slide. And when you look at the primary causes of perinatal death, birth asphyxia was 15%, while maternal complications 17%. I heard clearly Professor Etuk saying that, you know, we need to address maternal complications of pregnancy if we really want to reduce perinatal death, because majority of the region, actually these maternal complications contribute the highest causes of death compared to the other causes. So really we need to address obstetric complications and management if we want to address perinatal death. Next slide. In terms of women that have received uterotonics, starting from 73% of our women up to 100%. I mean, uterotonics is mandatory for every delivery. So we see no reason why any hospital should have less than 100% uterotonic use. So for our average is 93, which is unacceptable. And of course, the average of Nigeria is also 84, which is also not acceptable. Next slide. In terms of companion with choice, we know we have a major problem here. Because really the way our labor wards are designed, you can hardly allow a companion to be there. So we need to really advocate to make our labor wards, you know, suitable for you to have a companion by your side during labor. So it starts from 0 to 100%. Of course, the 100% would be private hospitals whereby that ability is there. But for our general hospitals, you can hardly allow a companion. For the average for the region is 25, and for Nigeria is 27, which is not acceptable. Next slide. In terms of women who receive counseling on breastfeeding, that should be 100% for everybody, but you can see that even for the average, we have 81, and for Nigeria, we have 80, so still not optimal. Next slide. And for family planning, we know that it's essential that before discharge, women should be given counseling so that they already start to decide what they want, so that when they come for their postpartum checkup, you give them their choice. Unfortunately, in some facilities, only 7% of our women are given that. In some facilities, most likely private facilities, you have up to 98%. The average is 73%, and which is slightly lower than the average for Nigeria. I think this should be the last slide. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Professor Hadiza Galanichi, the Northwest Regional Coordinator. I want to thank all the presenters. Actually, we've already gone beyond our time by about 3 minutes. I can see one question asking about the link between companion of choice and this program. So the literature in other climes has shown a link between companion of choice and outcome of mother and baby. We are currently studying this data. The little we've seen really is similar. So these are areas that are poorly studied in our country. So we're analyzing our data, like I said, but honestly, it's also showing that those that have that do not have the choice companion present at birth have poorer outcome for both mother and baby. But when we finish analyzing this data, I think we'll be able to make a more committed statement. But I'm sure you'll agree with me that in our environment, this is currently poorly studied. I don't know that there is any other quick question, because as I said, we've gone beyond our time. Any other question or quick comments? So that we'll end the session. Any other comment? You can raise your hand up if you have.
Professor Audu is raising his hand. I'll give him permission to talk now. He can unmute himself.
Hello, good morning. Oh, is it afternoon already?
Good morning, sir.
Thank you very much. I mean, the presentation by Dr. Hadiza, Professor Hadiza, I beg your pardon, Galadenchi was very, very interesting. And it only reaffirmed our previous observations that the commonest cause of maternal mortality in northern Nigeria is pre-eclampsia and eclampsia and not postpartum hemorrhage. One just wonder, why are we not observing as many deaths from postpartum hemorrhage? Is it that the women usually, may probably die before coming to the hospital? And that in case of eclampsia, the death usually comes very late. I think it would be nice if we know what is the cause. But for accompanying person, I think it is only accompanying person not by the bedside because of structural problems. But there are always accompanying persons who are outside the labor ward because as you know, most pregnancies in northern Nigeria are from by married women. So they are usually accompanying persons, although they are not inside the labor ward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, Prof. Idrissa. Dr. Adesina, is your hand up? If it is, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. I want to thank Professor Audu Idrissa for his comments. But I also want to make the observation that when we talk about accompanying persons, I don't think it is somebody who is sitting outside the labor ward. What I think the concept is about somebody who can provide some form of moral and psychological support to that woman by her side. We've all seen it. We've all monitored labor before. You have somebody who is saying, oh, please rub my back, rub my back. As medical students, as residents, we used to do that. And the woman will find it soothing. That's the kind of thing. So it's not somebody who comes in occasionally. It is somebody who can sit by the woman, hold her hand, maybe rub her back when she's in pain, you understand? So it's that kind of psychological support that I think we really mean by accompanying person. At least that's the impression that I get when you talk about accompanying a woman to the labor ward. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adesina. I just want to say that this platform can give a lot of data. This is just some of the data, and we just brought it up because they are among the QED indicators. We are currently analyzing this data, and some of it has been sent for peer review. So we hope in the next few months to be able to share even more in-depth analysis. I want to thank you very much. I'm sorry, there are some few hands up, but unfortunately the time is up. Please, my sincere apology. We'll have to stop here and hand over. Because we don't want to stretch the time given to us. So please, my apology. Thank you very much.
People can type in their questions if they still have questions in the chat box, and then it will be answered there or comments.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So please, if you have a question, go ahead, put it in the chat box. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to chair the session. I hand over to the organizers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Tuku and the team. I think it was food for thought. It just emphasizes for us, we've been talking about PPH, preeclampsia, sepsis. Well, as long as the burden remains high among our women, we'll continue to discuss it. The next session will be handled by Professor Galadanchi. She's here with us. She's going to give a talk on certain research.
Professor Adesina, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yep.
I shared my screen, but then
we can see you too.
Okay, can I share my screen? Can you see my screen, please?
Yes.
Yes.
You can see my screen. Okay, thank you very much. All right. So once again, good morning, almost afternoon, 5 minutes to afternoon. So good morning, good afternoon, distinguished colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank AFEMSON for giving me the opportunity to present this paper on the opportunities of maternal health research for improving women's health in Nigeria. Now, as you can see, this is a bit not the usual lecture in terms of we're not talking about management and how we can prevent maternal and fetal complications. But then this is a very important topic, and I hope at the end of my presentation, we'll all agree that we need to do more as far as research in maternal health is concerned, and just remind us of the various opportunities that are available. Now, the learning objectives at the end of this lecture, I hope I'll be able to introduce the importance of research to national development, mention few challenges of research in Nigeria, why the need of research in maternal health specifically, and what are the sources of funding for research in maternal health, and then introduce to us the TED Fund NRF, which is a major resource for funding, and then tell us about the 2019-2020 NRF cycle, and then a few reasons for rejecting proposals, and at the end of the day, have a conclusion. Now, in terms of introduction, why is it that it is important we do research in our country? This is because if you look at Global Innovation Index, which is one way to actually look at development of a country, you realize that we are placed almost 119th out of 129 countries in terms of human capital and research. We are placed 122 out of 129 in terms of infrastructure for research. We are placed 123rd in industry university research collaboration. We're placed 126, just more than 3 countries in terms of creative goods export, 106 in terms of knowledge and technology, 101 under creative input. Overall, we are 114 out of 129 countries. Now, this really shows that we are at the low level of the ladder. And there is no reason why we should be there, because our ability to really be one of the best when we get out of this country in terms of knowledge, in terms of being creative and so on. So why do we have to be, as a country, one of the lowest in the whole world? And also, when you look at research and development, currently it makes minimal contribution to national knowledge economy, very minimal in terms of research and development. Our universities, our research institutes do not play any significant role in terms of research and development. And who are the researchers? Where are the researchers? The researchers are in our academic and our research centers, but we're contributing very little as far as knowledge economy is concerned. Our universities and research institutions, they all operate in silos without sufficient interaction within themselves and other stakeholders. You have a research center talking about maternal morbidity and mortality, and they're not talking to teaching hospitals where they have the patients, or they're not talking to health facilities where the patients are. But we're all doing our thing in silos. In fact, you can find, you're talking about maternal and fetal complications, but the obstetricians are not talking to the pediatricians. The pediatricians are busy doing what they want to prevent perinatal mortality, when we contribute a lot of the reasons where we have perinatal mortality. So these are the problems that have been identified. Also, poor industry-university relationship. The universities are doing their research. The industry that's supposed to take the output of the universities into the industry and bring out products are busy doing their own research. So we are all working in different, different lines. Low uptake of research output by industry and government. We do a lot of our research, and at the end of the day, we just keep it for our promotion, not really for moving it to the next level. There is lack of conversion of our research output to innovation, commercialization, and patenting. I mean, all the equipment that we're using in healthcare, they came from research and then went to the industry, and then we're using it. But we do our research and we keep it in our cupboards for publication. And after publication, the best we can do is in terms of promotion. Research scientists not sufficiently interested in getting their research output beyond the level of publication. And research in the country, they're not really targeted at issues that will enhance our national economy. We're just targeted, we do research just because we want to publish and get promoted. Society are not holding university and research institutions sufficiently on account. For example, now the issue of preeclampsia that we've just finished talking about it. We've known for ages that preeclampsia is what kills our women. What are the researchers in Nigeria doing in terms of finding a solution to preeclampsia? Are we really looking for the cause of preeclampsia? Now preeclampsia is not a problem in the Western world. So they probably will never do research to find the cause. So we that have the problem, what are we doing in trying to find, is it a genetic marker? Is it a preventive way of, picking those that are going to have preeclampsia and treat them? So what are we doing? So society is not holding us responsible. And then of course, poor human capacity and infrastructure for research. Some of the research that we want to do, we don't have the infrastructure. And if we have the infrastructure, they're probably hitting somewhere, and those that are doing the research are not aware of it. In terms of our universities, we rank very poorly in the global ranking. And what do you think they use in ranking university? Universities are only ranked based on their research. What contributions have they made to their national economy? What contributions have they made to research and development? Not the numbers of students they graduate. That's not the ranking. And that's why the highest ranking universities, like Harvard universities, like Yale universities, you talk about the billions of dollars they get yearly for research, which is funded by their government. Because the government knows that is where they can get knowledge economy from this university. So they pump money into these universities. Only University of Ibadan in 2020 was ranked, among the top ranked universities. I think it was about the range of 401 to 500. That's why you have University of Ibadan placed 401 in terms of ranking of universities in the world. And it's the only one that is even in the ranking. All our other almost 100 universities in Nigeria have no place in this ranking because we don't do research. Only 4 universities are within the rank of 1,000, from even the 500 to 1,000, and that is the University of Ibadan, Lagos, and Lagos Covenant University, that is even a private university, has found a place there. And if you look for Covenant University, they're not training students more than, for example, ABU. But what are they doing? They're doing research. So we've got to, and when they do research, they are finding visibility in the ranking in the world. People are seeing what they are doing, not that they do it and at the end of the day in the cupboard. So what are the challenges? Why is it that we're not doing research in Nigeria? Why the problem when we have so many, academicians and knowledgeable academicians, professors, and so on, but we're still not doing well in terms of research? Adequate research priority setting. As far as we're concerned, research is not a priority, because if it's a priority, then we would have been funding it. But it is not a priority. Majority of our universities don't even fund research. All right, and then lack of funding. There's no funding. You can't do research without money. You can't do research without money. That's the truth of the matter. And then lack of coordination and collaboration. I might be doing a small part of my research in a way in Kano. Somebody else in Calabar might be doing something similar, that if we put our heads together, we might be able to come up with something more important. So there's lack of coordination, there's lack of collaboration. There's poor linkages between the research and the policy. Even when we do the research, as we have said over and over, we do it just for publication and for promotion. We don't get to that level of translating our research findings to policy. And then poor or lack of research infrastructure. As we've said, you need the research infrastructure for you to really do research. Suboptimal capacity building. We don't have enough researchers in terms of, the capacity. We don't have people that have very good capacity in doing statistics, in doing bioinformatics, in doing all the things that are necessary for research. Poor adherence to ethical guidelines, because you cannot do research without ethics. So we must have ethical guidelines that must be adhered to. Poor documentation. We might be doing a lot, because recently we went around the country trying to look for the landscape of research and development in the country. And it's amazing what you find, but they're not documented. You go to a research center, you've never heard of the research center, and you go and they do so many things, but they just do it and document it within their facility. Nobody knows what they are doing. So poor documentation and lack of appropriate M&E system that goes to monitoring and evaluation, and therefore you having data to know what is happening across the country. And of course, lack of motivation. If you don't motivate the researchers, there's no way these researchers are going to come out and do research that is going to help in national development. So why do we need research in maternal health? Specifically to maternal health now. We've talked generally on why we need research for development, but because we need valid data. Now everybody says PPH is the commonest cause of death in Nigeria. That is what the literature is saying. But really, if you look at it, probably it's preeclampsia, eclampsia, because as we have seen, the northern part of the country probably has a high contribution of maternal death to the national figure. And then for us, it is preeclampsia, eclampsia. So maybe this issue of 25% of our death is due to PPH might be an old data that we've been using. So it's high time we have valid data that we can decide and take decisions and policies on real evidence, instead of just taking on historical data. We bridge the scientific gap. There are many things that we don't know. We really don't know what causes preeclampsia, eclampsia. It is a condition of theories. So what is it exactly? We have more than enough patients to really look at this data. So we need to bridge the scientific gap. We need to improve the quality of care, of our maternal health care. Some of the things, for example, now we're doing a research on PPH, and the basic research on implementation of the 2012 guideline for PPH prevention and treatment. Why is it that we are not following the guidelines? Why is it that still women with delivered, you don't give them oxytocin? Why? So we must find out, and the only answer is through research. Then you can now improve. Update recommendations. All recommendations are guidelines are based on research. Every single guideline from WHO, or is it RCOG, or is it American Society, they base their recommendations and their guidelines on evidence-based, and evidence-based is research. But you see that their research will be based on all the research that have been done in the Western world. when we will now adopt the recommendation and the guidelines, probably it will not work for us because we have a different problem, but we have not done our own research to find out that. Then provide insight into mechanism of disease, just as I've said, in terms of preeclampsia, eclampsia, prediction markers. There's no doubt, I will keep on saying it. We need to find markers that predict some of our diseases so that we can prevent it, one of them preeclampsia, eclampsia. Assess safety and efficacy of therapeutic drugs. They're different drugs. These drugs are tried before we can use them. I'm sure you were there yesterday when the IVON team presented by Professor Bossady and the rest of the team presented on us using the injectable iron for treating anemia in pregnancy instead of us using blood transfusion. So now what's the recommendation for improvement of R&D research and development in Nigeria, in our universities, in our institutions? One is that we must enhance what you call the triple helix. Excuse me, please. Enhance what you call the triple helix. And the triple helix or the quadruple helix, the triple helix is you're looking at collaboration, linkages between the academicians, the industry, and government when you talk about triple. And when you talk about quadruple, you're talking about the academicians, the industry, the government, and the community. So we must have this synergy. We must have cooperation between the stakeholders. Academicians cannot be doing research and they just do research and forget about the industry. Industry cannot be doing research and they forget about the academicians. Government has to use the researchers to find solutions. And then the community has to hold us responsible to find answers to their problems. Scientists to focus their research more on issues that will enhance national knowledge economy, all right? And then improve capacity of scientists to include knowledge of converting their research output. The center that I now run, which is the African Center of Excellence for Population Health and Policy, that is our major responsibility and objective of training researchers, masters, PhD, of how they can translate whatever research output they have into policy, all right? And that should be done. Government to ensure adequate and functional infrastructure, societal enlightenment to hold the research institutions accountable for conducting research that address the needs of the research, their needs. So we should just not do research because we just want to find the prevalence of prom in our environment. So what about that? What is it that is a problem in our society? Pick it up and do research for it. And when you find out the answers, take it to where your answers can be used to improve what you have found an answer for. That is where we need to get to as far as research is concerned. There is need for our Nigerian universities to prioritize R&D. Now universities have a DVC research. Before it's only DVC academic, DVC admin. Now you have DVC research. In some universities in the US, you have vice chancellor research. That's what he does. For that whole university, he is just interested in research and he's a whole vice chancellor. Now improve funding. There is no doubt about that. We need improved funding of our Nigerian universities if we want to prioritize R&D. Then we must create enabling environment in our universities so that we can enhance better global ranking. This includes constant power supply. You can't do research without power supply. I have a -80 in my center, and I can't depend on the national grid to keep that -80 functional. If you put a sample in it and then there is no light for 10 hours, that's the end of your sample, the end of your reagent. Recently, we lost a lot of money in the reagents we bought in a tissue lab in my center because there was no light. So we now have to have a dedicated solar and a dedicated generator for that lab. Now you can see what the extra cost is. So instead of you using your money of research to actually buy equipment and buy reagents, you are buying generator and you're looking for solar energy. You must have internet connectivity. You need to be online. You need to look for literature. You need to make yourself visible. So you must have a website and so on. ICT infrastructure, there's no doubt about that. And of course, functional teaching and learning facilities, because they're the ones that are going to teach us how to do the research. So where do we get our sources for funding? I've just been talking about do research, do research. The next question I will hear from people is that, all right, we need to do research. Where do we get the funding? Government is not funding us. So where do we get the funding? All right. So yes, there are many, 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 many places you can get funding from. You need to just go out and the funds are there. You'll be amazed at the level of funds that are available for research. And you'll be amazed at where a lot of people will be interested in your research in the low and middle income countries, because that's where the problems are as far as health are concerned, because they have their own problems, yes, in the Western world, but they have solved most of the problems that we are now facing. So more research needs to be done for ours. You have like the WW international grants, like the www.grants.com. If you type in this, you will see all the research opportunities that are given by the US government. And you can choose the one that is related to what you are looking at, because most of the time they are categorized. Like, for example, they'll say, this research is for HIV. So if what you're looking for, what you want to look at is not HIV related, then you know that you don't need to apply. You have others like www.cfda.gov. You have the tgciaalumni.com. These are all where you can get funding from. In terms of individual donors, you have the Ford Foundation, fordfoundation.org. If you go to their website, you'll see when they call for research. You have the MacArthur Foundation. Also, we have a lot of research that was funded by MacArthur. For those that know, when we did the non-pneumatic anti-shock garment, this non-pneumatic anti-shock garment came from a research, and Nigeria was part of the research. Now non-pneumatic anti-shock garment is used. For us in most of our facilities, we see how effective it is to save lives. You have the Rockefeller Foundation. Right now, we're doing a research with Rockefeller, and of course, Bill and Melinda Gates, who is supporting the IVON trial that we're doing in Lagos, Kano. We also have the E-Motive, which is Bill and Melinda Gates that is supporting it. And then you have pharmaceutical companies, Pfizer, all the companies, they want to try their drugs. Where do they get patients? In the hospital. So they have to collaborate with us. And then, of course, non-pharmaceutical companies. You have foundations, the African Academy of Science. You have corporations, like the United Nations, UNICEF, and then you have government agencies. Your US government give NIH grants, and these are huge grants that are obtained. I know that in our hospital and in our center, we have many NIH grants that are going on. And then you have the MRC, which is the UK government. And also, I know many people that have the MRC grants that are going on. And then our national provider of grants, which is the TED Fund. I want to use the next few minutes to talk about the opportunity you can get from TED Fund, because TED Fund is there and TED Fund provides research funding for our academicians. And I'm very passionate about that because I've realized that very few of us actually access this funding. Very few obstetricians have sent for proposals for funding, and we need to know that it's available. TED Fund was introduced in 2000. The NRF TED Fund to support research was introduced in 2009. And what is the aim of this NRF? NRF is National Research Fund. It is aimed at promoting the conduct of applied research and innovation by academics in public tertiary education and research centers to drive the national socio-economic development of Nigeria in an increasingly globalized and highly competitive, knowledge-driven world economy. That is why NRF was set up. And NRF has a committee. And the committee has a blueprint, and this blueprint actually tells you all the research and why NRF supports research and how you can access this research. Mainly, they have three priority areas. You have the humanities and social science, you have the science, technology, innovation, and you have the cross-cutting segment. Now, science, technology, and innovation, that's where human and social welfare is. And human and social welfare, the thematic area of human and social welfare is where we can put all our research regarding our health as well as maternal health. they actually, the research agenda of NRF aligns with SDG. So once you're writing a research to NRF and it's related to health, make sure you align it to SDG 3, which is that of the health for SDG. Now, it also aligns to the National Strategic Health Development Plan. And we know what the National Health Strategic Development Plan was developed for. It was developed to implement appropriate policies and programs, as well as undertake necessary actions that would strengthen the national health system in order to be able to deliver effective, quality, and affordable health. Of course, in 2017, we know that Nigerian health system performance was ranked 187 out of 190. This is appalling, and I think it's a shame for all of us that are in the system. The National Strategic Health Development Plan strengthens the national health system. It utilizes research to inform policy. Who does the research? Academicians. And it also provides a sustainable, implementable health investment plan. Now, the objective of the Health and Social Welfare Thematic Group of NRF is to develop equity-oriented strategies for health delivery, develop lifestyle-related policies, establish a sustainable mechanism for capacity development, and develop capacity for comprehensive response to emerging and re-emerging diseases. These are the major objectives, and we can put all our research that we're doing in maternal health to really fit into this objectives. There are major categories. There are 5 categories under the health and social welfare. You have the national health system, you have the product development research, you have health system and operators, you have priority diseases and health problems, and you have social and behavioral research. Maternal health statistics can fall into any of these 5 categories. For the health system, maternal, the data that we're providing is part of health system. So health system, health research policy, mechanism, human resources. We've been talking about human resources for health. We've been talking about stillbirth attendant. They can all fall into this category. You're talking about ethical standard practice and codes of health research. All of them, we can find a research in maternal health that can fall into it. Bioinformatics, health research communication, quality assurance. Even our MPD for QED, we're doing quality assurance. You're talking about efficacy of locally available drugs and affordable health technology. We can all send our proposals based on any of this. Then specifically, you have a case for maternal and child health care under priority diseases and health problems. So this is where we can also put all our proposals. And also you're talking about non-communicable diseases in pregnancy, communicable diseases in pregnancy, HIV, diabetes in pregnancy, all of them can fall into this. Mental health, all of them can fall into this. Social and behavioral research. Research on mental health, we know there's postnatal depression, we know all the things that are related to depression and obstetric care, and therefore it can all fall into this social cultural environment. We talk about social cultural environment really affecting maternal health. Now, just to tell you that NRF is not just a matter of story. It's actually, NRF actually provides grants to researchers across the country. In 2020, we had almost 6,000 submitted concept notes, almost 6,000. Out of that 6,000, the first screening, 600 were told to submit full proposals, which means 1 out of 6, all right? And then out of them, almost 200, above 200, about 220 something grants were provided to researchers. And it starts from 10 million up to 50 million. So you can do a research and you can be funded from 10 million to 50 million. And you need to just apply and make sure your proposal is optimal. Because if it is not, then of course you're going to be screened out. And then what are the reasons that we reject proposals? Research scope are too broad and they are not focused. Somebody wants to reduce maternal mortality in the whole country and he's doing just a small study in Kano. I mean, that's impossible. Little originality in research. You're busy doing prevalence and KIP. Low value addition. Your research is not going to add any value to what is already known. poorly written summary, poorly stated objectives, unsatisfactory and inadequate technology being used and methodology, choice of out-of-date tools to be used, all right, inadequate of shallow research content or outrageous budgeting. They say you have 50 million maximum. Somebody will write a proposal and say 300 million. I mean, you throw it out of the window as soon as you see it. You don't even need to read it because he has not followed the guidelines. This is my second to the last slide. And I'm not going to end up without talking about collaboration because it is so important that we collaborate. And one example of collaboration is the MPD for QED that we have just finished talking about. You can see we're collaborating across the country. You had us talking from each of the region of the country. All of us collaborated to do this research. Professor Jamilu in Kano, it would have been impossible for him to give this data alone if he was doing this research with WHO alone. He would have just been able to give that of Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital, maximum that of Kano. But you can see he's given the whole nation because he has collaborators in each of this region. Now that is why collaboration is essential. You optimize success in research output, you ensure knowledge skill, you encourage technology transfer, you guarantee optimal utilization of resources, you foster economic and social development according to the triple helix, and our universities, industry and government linkages will foster economic growth, eradicate poverty, and improve our social development. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll end up saying that there is the urgent need for mainstreaming and institutionalizing research and development in Nigeria. And a lot is being done to that effect. TEDFund is really pushing for even developing the National Research Development Foundation that is really going to mainstream and institutionalize research and development in Nigeria. Maternal health research is a priority in our national health system. And without this research, there's no way we're going to improve our health system ranking. It's not possible. If we don't improve on our maternal health statistics, we're going to be at the low level of the ladder. Our investors will have to reposition research in order to improve their global ranking. And there is need for a paradigm shift from the conduct of research as mere academic exercise to aligning research to areas that would drive national development and knowledge economy. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Professor Deladenchi. I can assure you that you've talked about very, very crucial issue, because we all know that we have all been lacking on research in this country. And without research, we can't move forward, unfortunately. You've made a very good summary and a passionate appeal that we should go on, because we need research for evidence-based for solving our problems, because you can't go to somewhere and say you have this problem. The next question is, how do you know? And we also need it for our practice, because most of the results they give us across the world may not necessarily apply to our own center here. So it's very key, and you have summarized, in fact, that collaboration is key. That's the way I look at it. And the problem we have as of now is that even in our various institutions with 5 consultants, this consultant is doing his own thing, and nobody knows what he's doing. We should please start this collaboration, starting from the institutions, across board. You can't be working on the inter-institution. I want to say that this research is the basis, the main reason why AFEMSON has been formed. That's why this conference has given me the greatest joy, honestly. Because you see the quality of presentations today, you will know that people are beginning to take, shift, to researching great topics. So I will think that the way forward that AFEMSON can put across is first to form a research group, research advisory group, to help our younger colleagues, even older colleagues. You can't be too old to research. and to help us, to, if you have a proposal, you can seek assistance from that group. We have eminent researchers in this group. And so that's one thing. Then reason, why are we not researching? Honestly, there is no individual motivation. That's the way I look at it. There is no, most people are not into obs and gynae for research. There are many of us are up onto it for money, which unfortunately, I can tell you from key experience that money does not satisfy. It doesn't solve all the problems. And the other thing is that there are lots of instability in our health system, strikes here and there, and even interdepartmental fights. Nurses are quarreling with doctors and all the rest. So God will help us to solve some of these problems. I will pause here to look for chat. If people are writing, if people have questions, okay, no question I can see. Then we can wait for comments. Is anybody trying to comment on this? So because we have just about how many minutes more? 5 minutes more. Comments, please. The way forward in research in Nigeria. The statistics here she has given is obvious. It's very depressing, and we can't move forward without knowledge-based research. That we advance our knowledge. Please. I want comments from senior colleagues, from junior colleagues, from everybody. This is an important discussion and the primary objective of AFEMSON. Comments, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Professor Etu.
Yes, you are recognized, sir.
Let me appreciate the presenter. And I don't know how to put it, because what she has said and what she has done is really the crux of the matter in this country. I remember once in a gathering of academics, when I discovered a very highly placed academic standing up to abuse everybody that are sitting down doing research, forgetting about teaching students, getting students around. I say, well, it is true, and it's very true, really, and I believe in it, that we should carry our students along. But whatever it is, you cannot play down. You can't reduce the value of research in any institution you find yourself. I know, like as put by the presenter clearly, institutions are known by the level of research they do.
Yeah.
Where you cannot strike at that level, then you could as well be either call it any name, not university. But if it's university, it is the research function of it that is very key. Again, I thank God for where God has taken us as an association. I believe that now that we have come together, now that we have had this association for fetal maternal aspect of obstetrics, we should all come together. This is the essence of this association. And by the grace of God, we are likely to have representatives in different zones. So that, like I remember, like the last discussion we had, if we're able to pick people from different zones and join together and present a proposal, I don't think there's any funding body that will put that down. So I'm very excited, and I thank the presenter, and I thank God for this association that we have, by the grace of God, come to see. Let us all come together. Let us, settle our differences and move forward, because Nigeria has all it takes, like said by the presenter, and yet it's like, I don't know whether Nigeria is suffering from diabetes, that is suffering in the midst of plenty. Academics, very qualified ones, very intelligent ones, very great ones, and yet we are not making it. In terms of facilities, well, in terms of manpower, we have, as I've said already. And we should at the same time move. If we come together, we can twist the hands of our politicians, no matter what happens. If we come together, we can make a National Assembly hear us. But if we are still remaining the way we are, everybody in his own corner, we will remain and live. Let us, at the end of the day, have a society that will be better than what we meet. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, Professor Chuk. That's very good. And we have all agreed that this is the way forward. We just have to come together and carry out researches, not papers. There's a difference between papers and quality researches. Some are for just promotion. We are in a hurry for promotion. Yes, it's good to be promoted, but I can assure you that if you are a professor only in your corner in that your university and you are not known anywhere, your years in academics will have probably been wasted. Any other comment, please? Comments? Well, I don't know whether Professor Galadanchi has a parting word for all of us, and we then close this session.
Not really. I think I've said it all in the presentation, and of course you have yourself and Professor Etuk have reiterated the importance.
We should leave this meeting with the idea that we should go home and collaborate and write impactful papers that will change practice. That is not papers for promotion. It's impactful papers that will change practice. And it's sad that many of our professors, once they become professors, the next thing is political appointments. And then, many people forget about research. I tell you, what immortalizes you is your research, your work. It's not that appointment you think you have. So I will encourage all of us, both junior, senior, and contemporary, to please think of impactful papers. I thank you for attending this session. And I think the Dr. Additional will tell us when the next session starts. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. And thank you so much, Professor Galadanchi. I think what your presentation is actually food for thought. Some of the figures that you mentioned are absolutely horrendous, especially I think that slide on the innovation index, I think, and you said you came, is it 116 or 119 out of 129 countries? I mean, that is absolutely horrendous. And just, it's food for thought, and all of us must continue to strive. I tell people, one of the things you must try to do is see how you can put your institution on the map of the world. That should be the goal of any research that you do. Your institution should be on the map of the world. So thank you so much. I don't know, is it possible for you to share the slides with us? If you can, that would be wonderful. And people can at their leisure again. We are moving straight into the next session, which is the last abstract session for the conference. The conference is gradually coming to a halt. It's been an exciting 3 days. Professor Adeniji and Dr. Eleje will be, I have seen Professor Adeniji on the platform. I hope you're still here with us.
I am. Good afternoon.
Great to have you here, sir. So please, over to you. We have the presentations you can see on my slide. I think I've seen quite a number of the presenters here as well. I don't know if Dr. Eleje is here. They can join you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, colleagues. This session is supposed to last 45 minutes, and then we are about 5 minutes late starting, meaning that we have only about 40 minutes to round up with this session. I'll be coordinating this with Dr. George Eleje. And the last time I checked, he wasn't online. I'm not sure whether he's online yet. But be that as it may, we will kickstart. And when he joins us, we will do the needful in introducing him. Like I said, we have 7 presentations. And each presenter, our appeal should keep to a maximum allotted time of 5 minutes, so that we can have some 5 minutes at the end of all presentation to address some of the comments and questions that might be raised. At the rate of 5 minutes, we probably will have spent about 35 minutes with the presentation. So we'll implore all of us to either send in our comment questions into the chat box, and then at the end of this whole presentation, we will take a comment. So at this point, I would like to invite Dr. Abbey, and he will be presenting on admission cardiotocography versus Doppler auscultation. And I think Doppler auscultation of the fetal heart in high-risk pregnancy in a tertiary health facility in Nigeria. Dr. Abbey, can you just do that for us within the next 5 minutes, please? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Starting on the existing protocol, I will start the presentation. Right. That's the authors as shown. The introduction. So admissions, right. Hello, are you hearing me?
We can hear you. Dr. Abe, your time is going, please.
Okay, so we are very much limited with the time, so I will just cut it short. So admission CTG is 30 minutes CTG for a patient that comes to the labor ward. And that's, apart from CTG, intermittent auscultation can also be done. The idea of doing it is to pick up women that have chronic hypoxia or any form of abnormalities in CTG. And as we know that improving the quality of care at the time of birth can reduce almost 50% of perinatal mortality and almost a quarter of early neonatal death. And that's why monitoring babies in labor is very, very important. So CTG, although it is believed, some people believe that CTG decreases only convulsion, that is hypoxic ischemic encephalopathy, and does not really influence the perinatal mortality nor the rate of cerebral palsy. And those are all studied. The new study has shown that it can actually reduce perinatal mortality and also predict an outcome of labor. So in Nigeria, CTG is almost not used at all in our hospitals. And we use intermittent auscultation. On the basis of that, we decided to do this study to compare the association of admission CTG or intermittent auscultation with perinatal mortality. Hello, are you with me?
Please go ahead, Dr.
Okay. Dr. Abe, please go ahead.
Okay, right. So what we did was a prospective cohort design study whereby each of the patients, each of the 378 patients that came to the labor ward had 30 minutes CTG and intermittent auscultation. The CTG was interpreted using the FIGO guideline of 2015, and also we used the physiological approach to interpret the CTG. And the intermittent auscultation was interpreted using, assessed using the WHO 2018 protocol. So after the admission CTG, some patients showed abnormal CTG. What do? We try to resuscitate the babies, and those that were resuscitated move on to labor. And in labor, we use intermittent auscultation, mainly Doppler ultrasound, to monitor the babies. And the sample size is calculated using the cohort study protocol formula, and the data was analyzed using the SPSS software. Ethical consideration was also achieved. Hello, my data, okay, right. The main outcome measures for the study was the admission CTG and intermittent auscultation findings, then the intermittent auscultation findings in labor, cesarean section rate, ABDA scores at 1 and 5 minutes, and admission to special care baby unit, And the last and not the least, intrauterine fetal death and early neonatal deaths. Right. What are the results that we had? What is shown so far here, we are talking about high-risk patients. So these are the high-risk criteria that we use, that are pre-existing medical and gynecological conditions, previous poor obstetric history, maternal and obstetric conditions that develop during pregnancy, and complications in labor. Next slide, please. Right, what are the findings? The findings are admission CTG, we had normal findings in 270 out of 278 patients, while the inadmission CTG, inadmission intermittent auscultation, we had 321 out of the 378 patients. Then the pathological findings on CTG was 108, while that of abnormal finding intermittent auscultation was 57, and the total is 378 in both cases. Next slide, please. So we can see that 108 were abnormal admission CTG, while 57 was that of intermittent auscultation, which means admission CTG identified 51 more abnormalities than intermittent auscultation. So what are those different abnormalities that were identified? For this, we use the physiological interpretation of CTG, and what are the findings? What are the criteria that were used? So gradually evolving hypoxia, compensated, gradual evolving hypoxia, uncompensated, gradual hypoxia, gradually evolving chronic hypoxia, hello, are you with me? Hello?
Dr. Abe.
Dr. Abe, your time is almost up. Your time is almost up.
So let's leave that. So the main thing is that the admission CTG picked 108, while the intermittent auscultation picked 57. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So, hello, no, the previous slide, please. So how did they perform the admission CTG and intermittent auscultation? We could see here that the admission CTG got predicted more patients that had cesarean section and venous delivery than intermittent auscultation. They predicted more women that have less than 7 of first 1 minute Apgar score than intermittent auscultation, more women that had 5 minute Apgar score of less than 5 than intermittent auscultation, and more babies that were admitted to special care baby unit than intermittent auscultation. Generally, the admission CTG performed far better than intermittent auscultation in all cases. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, we can see that admission CTG was a better predictor of labor and neonatal outcome than admission intermittent auscultation. CTG, therefore, was highly recommended as an integral tool in the management of labor. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Abe. I will appeal that our presenter do a little bit more about time management. We don't have the luxury.
No.
We don't want to shortchange our colleagues who will be going for Jumat service in the very shortest time nearest. Incidentally, the next presenter is also Dr. Abe, and we'll be talking about the role of admission CTG in high-risk pregnancy in a tertiary health facility in Nigeria. I hope your slide is up, Dr. Abe, for that.
One of my senior registrars presenting it. So the slide is on.
And please keep within the time limit, please. Let's go on, please. Can we have the presenter at top, please? Hello? Hello?
Hello, is Dr. Abe here? One of my senior registrars is supposed to be presenting it.
He should speak, please.
Can we call another person, please? Maybe something's wrong with his
That'll be fine with us. Do we have Dr. Okobiri around? Dr. Okobiri, if you are online, you are supposed to talk about the prevalence, predisposing factors, and obstetric outcome in patients with placenta previa at the University of Calabar Teaching Hospital, a 6-year review. Dr. Okobiri, are you with us? Can Dr. Okobiri just acknowledge if
Yes, sir, I'm here. I'm trying to share my slide right now. I'm here, sir.
she is present online?
Yes, sir.
Dr.
Yes,
Fatima
Dr. Okobiri.
Abubakar Rahim.
No, Dr. Okobiri is there. Dr. Okobiri, can you please share your slides?
Yes, I'm doing that right now. Okay. Everybody, Dr. Komomo Obstetric. I'm a senior registrar in the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology, University of Calabar Teaching Hospital, Calabar. And the topic of my presentation is the prevalence.
We are not seeing the slide.
The topic of my, okay, right now, it's coming up right now. The topic of my presentation is the prevalence, predisposing factors, and obstetric outcome of patients with placenta previa in the University of Calabar Teaching Hospital, and it was a 6-year retrospective study. This will be my outline for the discussion. Globally, placenta previa is a common cause of obstetric hemorrhage. It's a life-threatening condition that contributes significantly to maternal mortality and perinatal mortality and morbidity. And it's said to occur when there is partial or full implantation of the placenta in the lower uterine segment. And it's a major indication for hospitalization and cesarean deliveries globally. And the prevalence globally still varies from 0.2 to from 0.3 to 2%, and Nigeria it from 0.1 to 1.65%, as you can see in the studies there. And the cause is still uncertain, and the factors are scarring of the uterus from termination of pregnancies, uterine surgery, cesarean sections, and with the increase in assisted reproductive technology. But however, in the University of Calabar Teaching Hospital, no study has been done on this life-threatening condition. Hence, there was a need to determine the prevalence, predisposing factors, and the obstetric outcome of placenta previa. It was a retrospective analytical cross-sectional study of the cases of placenta previa that were managed in our facility from January 2014 to December 2019. Patient information were collected into the Excel sheet pro forma, and they were analyzed using the Stata 16 statistical package to get our results. And based on the early prevalence, we had a total of 10,665 deliveries in the 6-year period, out of which 140 of them had placenta previa, giving a prevalence of 1.35 and 31%, which is in keeping with both global and local studies seen. And based on the types of placenta previa that we found, it was found that major placenta previa, which is type 3, type 4, with type 3 being the most prevalent in 36.4% of cases. And that was similar to findings that were seen in studies done by Ikechebe et al. In Navy, some other studies. And this just shows the prevalence of the different types. Based on the social demographic parameters of we found out, the mean age was 30 years plus or minus 4, and that was standard deviation. And the peak incidence was found, the peak prevalence was in the age group of 25 to 29 years old. But however, if you combine it with those that were between 30 to 34 years old, it was quite high. And we had 30% of patients were unbooked and 70 were booked. And high parity, 2 to 4, parity of 2 to 4 contributed significantly to the group of women that we saw. And based on the risk factors as we see in the table, we found out that scarred uterus from surgical termination of pregnancy was the highest risk factor, followed by previous cesarean sections. And in almost 50% of cases, 68 women did not have any identifiable risk factor. Okay, and then most of the women delivered at term, and just about 5% delivered at less than 34 weeks. The major presentation was antepartum hemorrhage, which caused the cesarean section. Emergency cesarean section was done for up to 70% of these women, and most of the cases were done by the senior registrars in the department. And based on the classification of postpartum hemorrhage following cesarean delivery, we used the cutoff of 1,000 mils of blood, and we noticed that about 32 women, which is about almost 1/4, had postpartum hemorrhage from placenta previa, requiring transfusion of 1 to about 4 units of blood. And in the study, there were 4 peripartum hysterectomies that were done, and the maternal mortality, 1 case was recorded in a patient, and this patient was an unbooked patient who presented in a very bad state, and having been transfused, she finally died. That was quite sad. Following the neonatal outcome, we noted that a lot of babies did quite well in terms of their ABGA score in the 1st and in the 5th minute. However, those that had major placenta previa were the ones that we noticed were more that had an ABGA score of less than 7, that had beta asphyxia, which warranted neonatal NICU admissions. And first stillbirths, there were 14 stillbirths, out of which first stillbirths were 12 and macerated were 2, with neonatal being 5. Then given a case fatality of placenta previa at 0.71%, a maternal mortality ratio of 9.38 for placenta previa per 1,000 live births, and a perinatal mortality ratio of 135.7 per 1,000 live births. And it was quite comparable with the study that was done in Egypt, but lower than, and even lower than that was found in a study done in Jos. Well, in conclusion, from the study, the major risk factors we saw were advancing maternal age, multiparity, and scarred uterus, especially from surgical termination of pregnancy and previous cesarean section. And we had a fairly high perinatal and maternal survival rates, but they were also marked life-threatening conditions. Hence the recommendation that we should keep on counseling these women and offering contraception to reduce family size, and also to prevent unwanted pregnancies that will lead to scarred uterus. And also the need to set up protocols to reduce cesarean section rate. Early antenatal booking should be encouraged for antepartum diagnosis and management, and also preparation for delivery. And there should be routine mid-trimester ultrasound scan that should be recommended for these women who are high risk from the study that we've done. Although the Royal College of Gynecologists do not recommend a routine mid-trimester scan, but for these women, I think we may look at offering them to monitor them and follow them up. Counseling of these women should be done in line of reserving cross-match blood in the blood bank, because we don't know which woman may require blood transfusion as seen in the study. These were the references I used, and I want to say thank you for listening. Thank you. I would await questions. Thank you very much.
Dr. please thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Kubri, for keeping the time. Dr. Kubri, you've done very well. Doctor, the second presenter just sent a chat that he was having some challenges and will be available, but I will implore him to please keep to time while we give him the second chance. Dr. Jumbo, are you there? Dr. Jumbo. Dr. Jumbo, are you online? If Dr. Jumbo is not online, please can we move on to another presenter? He requested to present, and we have given him a second chance and is not available. Dr. Abubakar Rashid.
Rashid, yes, sir, I'm here. Can I?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Sorry, can you let us hear your presentation on the social?
Yes, sir.
Biological determinant of placenta-associated syndrome amongst parents in Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital, Kano. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Can you help me share my slides? I'm having difficulty here.
Dr. Adeshina, can you help with sharing our slide, please?
Okay, just a minute.
Thank you.
I hope Dr. Okwebiri has stopped sharing. Okay.
If you haven't stopped, you can stop him, please.
I have stopped sharing.
Okay. Okay, social and
biological determinants.
Okay, just a minute. Yeah, I have it. Okay, you can see the slides?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Permission to start an existing protocol. I'm Dr. Fatima Abubakar Rashid. I'll be presenting the abstract summary of the study titled Social and Biological Determinants of Placenta-Associated Syndromes amongst Parturients in Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital. As you can see from the slide, these are my co-researchers. I would love to go through next slide, please. Okay, next slide. By way of introduction, placenta-associated syndromes are a cluster of pregnancy-related disorders that are hypothesized to have a shared origin in the placenta with adverse clinical manifestations in both the mother and the fetus. The maternal past phenotypes are the gestational hypertension, pre-eclampsia, eclampsia, placental abruption or placental infarction, while in the fetus, the phenotypes are the preterm birth and small for gestational age. These pregnancy complications are seemingly different in manifestation. As such, we are previously considered as distinct clinical entities with different etiologic origins. However, it is now increasingly becoming clear that these are syndromic phenotypes with shared origin in the placenta, and that abnormal placentation seem to be the common pathophysiologic pattern of these disorders. We also know that major obstetric hemorrhage and hypertensive disorders of pregnancy are the two leading causes of maternal mortality in Nigeria. And unfortunately, these two constitute the major maternal phenotype of PASS. Next slide, please. The main aim of the study is to evaluate the association between social and biological risk factors of adverse pregnancy outcome and placenta-associated syndrome amongst parturients at Aminu Kano Teaching Hospital. Next slide. Next slide, please. It was a case control study amongst 100 eligible pregnant women admitted into the labor ward, comprising 50 cases and 50 controls. For the inclusion criteria, we recruited booked and unbooked referred pregnant patients who are admitted for delivery with a singleton gestation with at least a documented diagnosis of one maternal or fetal phenotype of PASS. While for the controls, we recruited women who are admitted for delivery with a singleton gestation and have none of the maternal or fetal phenotypes. We excluded non-consenting women, presence of any fetal anomaly, and twin or higher order gestation. Cases were matched for age and parity within 48 hours. Placental tissues were obtained using standard procedure, and samples were sent to histopathology, chemical pathology department for analysis. Next slide, please. Concerning this study, we employed the use of human malondialdehyde of human vitamin C ELISA kit, which employed the principle of sandwich ELISA. Optical density of both MDA and vitamin C was measured spectrometrically at a wavelength of 450 nanometer, and we compared that with the standard sample so as to obtain the real concentration of our MDA and vitamin C. We also obtained the ethical approval of this study from the Research and Ethics Committee of Bayero University, Kano College of Health Sciences. Then we set our, next slide, please. We set our level of statistical significance at less than 5% for our statistical methods. Next slide. Next slide, please. Our results, as you can see, the first table is the socio-demographic characteristic. There was no statistically significant difference between the two groups in terms of their socio-demographic characteristics, except for the educational status. Next slide. This table showed the obstetric characteristics of our patient. There was no difference in the mean parity between the two groups, as this was adjusted for during recruitment of the patient in order to have comparable groups. The difference in the mean gestational age at delivery, as you can see, could be due to iatrogenic prematurity or from the condition itself. As you can see, the booking status is also different, and this has direct bearing with the educational status that we saw different among the two groups in the last table. Next slide. This is the viral distribution of the phenotypes. You can see eclampsia had the highest frequency, and we had up to 24% of our patients having a mixture of the phenotype. I remember in this study, we had up to 10 patients that exhibited all the phenotype of past from the maternal to the fetal. Next slide. This, the table 4, showed the association between biological determinants of adverse pregnancy outcome and placenta-associated syndrome. As you can see from this table, the mean packed cell volume here in the case and control group were 28.7 plus or minus 3.15 and 31.3 plus or minus 2.3. The p-value was set as less than 0.01. You can see statistically significant difference between the two groups. So also the mean vitamin C assay in the case was significantly lower compared to those in the control group. But for the malondialdehyde, we had comparable values between the two. There was no statistically significant difference. For the malaria parasite, as you can see, the controls, those that don't have any phenotype of past, had less malaria parasite infestation compared to those in the case group. Next slide, please. This is the maternal and fetal outcome. As you can see, the study showed a statistically significant difference in the fetal maternal outcome between the two groups. As you can see clearly here, we had 4 fresh stillbirth, 3 macerated stillbirth in the case group, and you can see none was there in the control group. You can see here the neonatal, the neonates in the control group had significantly higher first minute APGAR, and at 5 minutes, up to 24% of those neonates remained severely asphyxiated. Next slide, please. This is the last table showing the binary logistic regression analysis. Following the logistic regression analysis, low mean packed cell volume, placental malaria infestation, and reduced placental vitamin C stood out to be independent predictors of placenta-associated syndrome after adjusting for compounding variables. The p-values were less than 0.01. Next slide. Next, okay, yes. In conclusion, from this study, we can see that patients with positive placental malaria were 4 times more likely to develop placenta-associated syndrome compared to those. We got this from the odd ratio on the logistic regression table. Women with low mean packed cell volume were almost twice likely to develop PASS. Also, women with low levels of antioxidant, that is vitamin C, in their placental tissue are more likely to develop placenta-associated syndromes. Next slide. So based on the findings from our study, we recommend that there should be effective prevention and treatment of malaria via vector control, new and improved diagnostic, easy to use, and other things. Also, we recommend a larger study with a larger sample size, multi-center, where we can evaluate further to see the relationship between antioxidant and also association of PASS, as we all know what PASS does to our women. Also, prevention of anemia in pregnancy as well too, through prophylaxis and also through treatment and prevention of malaria, which is endemic in our society. Next slide. These are my references. Thank you very much for the audience.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rashid. Please take note of the questions in the chat box as relevant to you. I just saw that Professor Falabi sent in a question, but that will be taken at the end of all the presentation. Dr. Ubon Akan, your presentation is severe life-threatening pregnancy complication, near miss and maternal mortality in a tertiary hospital in southern Nigeria, a retrospective study. Are you online, Dr. Ubon Akan? Please, you have. Okay, please. Do us the favor of doing that within the next 5 minutes. Thank you.
Dr. Akpan, please, can you start? Time is going, please.
Have you seen my slides? I'm trying to.
You can see your slides, please. Can make it slideshow, please. Your time is going.
You can't start from the end of your slide because you are showing us references. Yes, thank you.
Good afternoon once again. I'm presenting on severe life-threatening pregnancy complication, namely, and maternal mortality in tertiary hospital in southern Nigeria. It was a retrospective review. Pregnancy and childbirth are physiological processes that may bring joy to many families and unexpected sorrows and suffering to some families. The tragedy of maternal death has generated several discussions in low-income countries, and any woman who is pregnant is also at risk of dying in the developing country. Acute maternal mortality or morbidity or obstetric neonates refers to an event in which a pregnant woman comes close to maternal death but does not die because of the treatment she received or sometimes by love. WHO defines obstetric neonates
oh my God.
as, am I online? Am I heard?
We
can hear you.
WHO defines neonates as a woman, case of a woman who nearly died but survived a complication that occurred during childbirth, during pregnancy, childbirth, or within 42 days of termination of pregnancy, irrespective of site and duration of pregnancy. And this definition is actually similar to the definition of maternal mortality rate. The difference is one escaped, one could not escape. The observed decline in the maternal mortality rate globally, especially in developed countries, where it is low, now a single digit, makes it difficult to evaluate the quality of care, about the usefulness of evaluating data from neonates. Hence, neonates data may offer more useful information regarding the quality of care the men received when they had complications in hospital. The main objective of this study was to identify, classify cases of neonates, determine the frequency of maternal neonates event, and then study the maternal and parental count. In the literature review summary, we found that actually the reported neonates rates range from 3.01 to 9.05% in developing countries, and it's about 1% in developed countries. And what we found in most previous studies that they only focus on peripartum events. Based on the WHO definition just stated, irrespective of site and duration, it means that cases like ruptured ectopic pregnancy, massive intraperitoneal hemorrhage leading to hypothalamic shock were not included, or cases of smaller pregnancies or cases of abortion were not included. In this review, we take time to follow the WHO definition as far as using the Philippines criteria of classifying neonates. The setting was University of Calvary Hospital review. Period of study was 1st January 2012 to December 2016. It was 5-year retrospective review. And the sources of data include health record, maternity register, including antenatal, gynecological, and labor register. And we used the method of classification as stated. And the cases were identified based on the classification, the Philippines classification of labor dysphagia, infection leading to hyperthermia, hypoxemia, and of course, severe maternal anemia leading to anemic heart failure and pending death. For cases of neonates or maternal mortality, data were collected on demographic characteristics, including parity, gestational age, at the time of sustaining the neonate's mobility, nature of obstetric complication, treatment received, and cross maternal parental complication. There were 10,111 pregnancy-related admissions during the period of review. We were able to identify 790 cases of life-threatening complications in pregnancy, out of which 691 escaped and were classified as neonates, while 99 could not escape and were classified as maternal death. The total number of peripartum admissions in the period of review was 9,894. The maternal neonates, calculated maternal neonates in the period of review was 68.34 per 1,000 maternities. The maternal neonates to mortality ratio was 8:1. And the maternal mortality ratio was 904 per 100,000 live deaths. And when we compared with the national maternal mortality ratio in the year of 2017, when this study was concluded, it was similar to national maternal mortality of 917 per 100,000 live births. However, was much higher compared to the global maternal mortality ratio of that year, which was 211 per 100,000 live births. Like we said, that most of these life-threatening complications occur in developing countries, and of course, 90% of maternal deaths also occur in developing countries. Of the 691 maternal neonatal cases, 308 were complications that develop after death, with what is classified as peripostal complication, whereas while 432 complications occurred during the peripartum period, sorry, and 358 complications occurred before the gestational age of 28 weeks. The perinatal